Hello everyone, as you all know, we're starting this new series called Finding Love, and we have our guest speakers for today's episode. These are my friends.
I'm Diogo.
My name is Alembi.
So you guys want to share a fun fact about yourselves?
Fun fact, I like skateboarding, trying to learn guitar, and I think that's about it.
That's good. I like to write.
Interesting. Okay, so I have a set of questions that you guys brought up when I did a question box on Instagram, and we're going to ask a few to them today. So we'll start. So how did you guys meet? What's your guys' love story?
I could start that. Well, we met at church. It was a new church I was looking at, I guess, because my home church is just a Spanish church. So I was looking for an English-speaking church, and then that's when I met her, and she was just, I feel like God highlighted her to me, and there was something in me that just knew, and after that, I got her Instagram and DM'd her, and that's how kind of it all started.
Yep, essentially, yeah.
Do you want to say your point of view on that, like as the girl?
Well, let's say he had to pursue, and that's what I liked, because I didn't necessarily I was just very cautious, and so when he reached out, I just I was just kind of more careful, and yeah, I just liked that he actually pursued me. He actually went out of his way to reach out to me, and he was very polite and very respectful. And then after a couple of days, that then led to our first date, and yeah.
The rest is history.
Wow,
Yes.
that's beautiful. I was a part of that process. I got to see it. Okay, so as you know, before you date, you're single. What would you tell someone who does get frustrated in that season?
Yeah, so I personally never really got frustrated because I was single, but I feel like the reason why I never got frustrated was because I was just so content with the Lord. And even when other, let's say, situations around me or circumstances just weren't how I'd want them to go, those would be what would get me a little bit frustrated. But regardless, what helped me was just my contentment with my relationship with the Lord, and just keeping my relationship with Him strong, and literally relying on Him as my number one.
It's good. It's all based on your focus. You know, if you're focused on God, and that should be where your focus is at, not on other relationships. You know, a relationship will come, and there's God, and then there's education, your job. You know, there's other things you can focus on, and yeah, just focus on things that are positive and things that you can control, rather than the ones that you can't.
Yeah, and if anything, we've actually talked about this, how we kind of think the best relationships happen more when you weren't really expecting them. But when you were focused on your own stuff, you know, again, the focus that he was talking about, when you're focused in school, work, church, or anything else, and then all of a sudden just that one person is highlighted or just comes into your life, and then it kind of just that's when they start to complement your life, and they're just a blessing added on top of it.
Yeah.
But when you're too focused on oh, I'm single, oh, my friends, then you start comparing yourself, and you're oh, my friends over here are dating, or she's talking to another guy. Because I actually had that. I had pretty much all of my friends were kind of talking to somebody, and they'd tell me this and this. How about you? No, nothing, nothing, but, I'm glad to hear about you, and And so, yeah, I'd say definitely, like he said, your focus, and, not comparing yourself to others, and just being content with the Lord overall.
What would you say a guy's perspective would be, in that sense? Like how she said, oh, my friends are saying, they're in relationships. I'm oh, I'm not. How would what's a guy's process through that?
A guy's process in the singleness? I'm not quite sure. I feel like it's more easy. In a secular sense, I feel like a guy, if he's not in a relationship, then he would want to just, mess around, I guess. But in a guy that's godly, I feel like it's the same thing. His focus will be on the Lord. He there's no outside distractions. He would be focused on the right things, and he would know that God has a plan, and that it'll come to fruition. So it's just a matter of time. Just wait. But like guys that are godly would have more patience. They would be focused on the right things, and then God will.
And that's where you were before, like you
Yes.
met me. So, how did you guys know you were ready to date? Like you guys were in your singleness, and then he said he felt like God highlighted you for him specifically, and then you like kind of guys started talking. So, how did you know you guys are ready to take that next step into actually dating? Like not just talking, getting to know each other, but like okay, I want to be committed to this person and starting a relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah, well, do you want to start off? Do you want me to?
I could start off. I was just ready because I think by that time I've had some good amount of time without being in a relationship, and just God put me through a process, and I was really on fire for God. I was really seeking the Lord, and what made me more confident than like, oh, I could enter this relationship is just seeing her faith, seeing her just, you know, she was just really strong with the Lord, and that just gave me the confidence like, yeah, this relationship is going to be great because we got God with us, you know. It's not just gonna be us, it's going to be with God, and both of us were on the same mission, we were on the same path, and that gave me the confidence that yeah, this relationship is going to be a good relationship.
How did you feel like when you felt like she was highlighted for you? Like what was like, oh, this girl, this highlight, like what was that feeling when you like saw her and you're like, she's highlighted for me, like I feel like she's highlighted for me?
The first thought that came into my mind is yeah, like that's my wife. So that's why I kind of like pursued her very hard, even to the fact that I went home and I told my mom, like, yo mom, I found my wife, and and that's when I DM'd her, and I was persistent, and yeah, I'm here.
So then what about when you saw him, you got that DM, like what was your process even when you just first saw him?
Yeah.
Did that, you're my husband coming?
Well, for me, I was, well, in my season of singleness was like the best. I honestly enjoyed it. So I always talk about it. Like, oh my gosh, I was having such like the time of my life. Even though like in my personal life I was going through, let's say it was definitely a season of isolation, but it was such a great season because yeah, I'd get sad and here and there, but I'd always like go to the Lord about it, to God, and so I feel like that really like helped me through it, and I connected with my sister more. I got more like, you know, in like we just became a lot more closer, and she was the one who actually first because she saw him first before I did, and she said that she was like, oh, that guy's for her, right? That guy's for my sister, and then she let me know, and I was like, oh, I didn't see him, you know, but then it was at another event where I saw him, and I was like, oh, you know, he's kind of not bad looking. He's kind of cute. And then I see he had followed me, and I was like, okay, well, I'll follow him back. He's local, you know, I'll follow him back, you know, get connected with the community. And so I followed. It was at church, you know, but anyways, yeah, so then I followed him back, and you know, we've talked about it, and he's like, oh yeah, that was his sign. He was, oh, all right, like, you know, you know, let's say I'm a step closer, right? And so then, yeah, after that, that's when he DM'd me, and I was like, okay, you know, I was just careful in my season of singleness. Overall, I was just careful. I also kind of want to add that there was like some other people, some other like guys who like reach out, and I've always kept my boundaries straight, and I've always been such a like straight, just going to the point.
What keeps you to have those boundaries?
Honestly, my relationship with God, and just the fact, like, just like knowing who I am in Him, and knowing my value, and knowing like what I am able to even like offer, you know. And so yeah, I remember like during that season, you know, some guys would like reach out, and I would just keep it at friendship, and I'd try to make it as clear as possible. I'd like, good bro, you know, a little bro in there, a little something, you know, or sometimes I'd even say straight up like, sorry, I don't think, I literally would say, sorry, I don't think my future husband would want me talking to you. I'm sorry, but I just don't think it would be right, you know? And so I was just preparing
And
for
the
it.
difference with Diogo was what? Because did you pull out the future husband too, or no?
No, no, oh no, I didn't. Not at all. I made sure not to.
Not this time.
I was like, no, not this one. But yeah, so he reached out, and again, I was just careful. I was like, I'll take some time to, respond. And so when we finally, engaged in conversation, I could just tell that he genuinely had a heart for God. And I also had my family, because I'd tell my mom, my sister. The first DM I got from him, we were on our way back from church. And and so we were driving back home, and we're almost home, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, and I told my sister, guess who just DM'd me? My mom's all like, what's going on, who is it? My dad's all like, what's going on, like trying to stay on the road and everything. And then I told him, this one guy just DM'd me from the church, and he's like cute, and no, I didn't think he was gonna DM me. And Mom was like, tell me all about it, this and this. And so my family always knew about him from the start, and they're always so encouraging towards it. They're always like, oh, just give it a try, just get to know him, at least get to know him. And I was like, I don't know, is it right? Do you guys think I should? And yeah, I was just seeking advice from them, and they're, again, like I said, they just really liked him. Because I just showed them his Instagram, and they were like, oh yeah, try.
How did you know your family's advice were the advice to listen to? How did you know this is healthy advice I'm receiving?
Yeah, because first of all, I just know that they will never give me advice that, to lead me astray, especially my mom, especially now that she's come to the Lord. And yeah, she was always just she even told me don't judge a person, before getting to know them, at least try to just see, you can tell even by his Instagram that he is at least genuine, right? So just, be open to it. And so that's when I was, and yeah, and then after that, I could just tell he genuinely had a heart for God. And he was very respectful, very polite, he respected my boundaries so much. And I just want to add this in there, a little fun fact. But I actually, told him I'm not really friends with guys. I kind of have more my boundaries here. And he respected them. He didn't respond to me. I was like, no way. Too much. I was like, just like that. Yeah. And so then after that, I saw that he actually respected them, and I was like, no, you know what? And I feel very convicted. I felt such a conviction from God, because I just felt like I was judging him, without actually getting to know him first. And so then, yeah, that's when I kind of responded to another DM from a while back. And so I kind of restarted the conversation, and I was like, oh, but about this, yeah, this and this and this. And then I was like, yeah, we can keep talking, it's fine, I wouldn't mind. But yeah, from the start, he was always like, hey, I want to pursue a relationship with you, if there's, I want to respect your boundaries, these are my intentions, and that's one thing I just love. That's what I love the most about him too. I loved that I could genuinely see he had a heart for God, and two, that he was respectful of my boundaries and everything, and three, that he was just actually pursuing me and letting me know his intentions. I don't want to just be your friend, I actually want to date you. And I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just give it a try.
So this question is for you.
Okay.
How are you able to see Alembi from the eyes of the Spirit, see her as a daughter of God, rather than just through your fleshly eyes?
Yeah. Just comes down to being submitted to God, and just not watching or seeing things that I'm not supposed to. Once you stray away from that, and you get the purity from the Lord, and you have the Holy Spirit flowing within you, you can't. I honestly speaking, you can't see women like that. Even if, let's say, they're in a bathing suit, you won't see them like that. And yeah, it just comes down to straying away from things that you're not supposed to see, and submitting your life to God, and through His Word, through prayer, through even worship sometimes, You're gonna be filled with His grace, His love, His forgiveness, His patience, the Holy Spirit, man. And with that, you should be good. You'd see women how they are, and that's beautiful.
And I like how you say that because it kind of reminds me of the verse that goes, "Your eye is the lamp to your soul."
Yes.
So like, basically, what you do see that kind of goes to show where your spirit is, where your walk with God is. So I like how you mentioned, like, be careful what your eye sees.
Yeah, and even what you hear. I mean, there's a lot of songs, and that's one big thing too, is just cutting off some rap music, because you could say like it doesn't affect you, but at least personally for me, I've noticed like if I do listen to certain words, or either certain songs, either I get angrier, see things differently, and what you feature your eyes, or your eyes, your ears, everything, it matters. It matters, and straying away from that will give you more of a pure heart.
Those are good. Those are really powerful. Thank you. Okay, Lemby, this is the one for the girls.
Okay.
So how did you know you were able to trust them and like not feel afraid to open up? Because I know trust is like a big thing, especially for girls. And then I want to see the guys' POV after, but how were you able to like trust him?
Well, just kind of seeing, I would say like his approach towards me, and like the things he would say to me without actually saying them, as in like his character, how it would be. I'd actually like listen to him, like pay attention to what he'd say, or like whenever he'd talk about like his relationship with like, let's say his parents, right? And he just seemed like a genuine guy. And so after that, I'd say, I just kind of, I feel like it's also kind of a risk that you kind of do, because at the end of the day, you can't really know fully if you can trust someone, but there are the signs that you can trust them. And definitely like, overall prayer and just asking God if, this is from him and everything, and if it is from him, to allow this and this to happen. And when those things do happen, then okay, God is in this, this is God leading us. And that also, you just get that confidence from God, I feel. And knowing that, God is in this relationship, he's the one leading us, I feel I can trust him, and again, his character.
So that made you like not be afraid to like when opening up to him.
Yeah, and I feel like overall too, it's also just like, it's a process. You don't just automatically, it's like 100%. Slowly, step by step, and then from there on you also see.
Because I feel like that's where a lot of people mess up on. They think it's like overnight, but like you said, it's a process and trusting. It's a process and doing things. You can't just expect the other person, here's all my emotions on a platter. It's like it takes time for people to like open up. And I think I like what you said, like God brought confirmation through your prayers. That kind of helped you like open up even more little by little. How about you, Diego, from a guy's perspective? Like, what made you like trust her? Like, what were confirmations or signs from God that you got to, not only as a person but like spiritual?
Spiritual. What made me trust her in general more is just that she's went with me through ups and downs. She's a ride or die. So after a while, it's just, and I couldn't help but to trust her because she was there. And all my bad moments and all my great moments, and then also her responses, how she made me feel when I was opening up to her, and knowing that she's God-led, and God could use her as a spokesperson to talk to me, and it helps out. And I think she's a very smart girl, and she gives good what's it called? Advice. Yes.
Okay, now I have a question for the both of you. So you both go not to the same church, you both go to different churches. So how do you guys like manage being involved in church, like both being involved in church, but like also knowing like, oh, this is of God? Because I know there can be some people who are like, no, like the same church, but you guys are both Christian, you're both spirit-led, you both go to different churches. How are you guys able to manage that in your relationship?
I feel the way we manage it is like we kind of take turns. I mean, there's sometimes I show up at her events, and there's sometimes she shows up to mine, and there's no clashing of theology. There's no clashing between that. I feel like we both have the same headspace when we think about Christ, and we both have good relationships with with our churches. There's just nothing wrong, and it's just all about taking turns right now. I mean, currently we're not married, so but I do agree that once we're married, I feel like we do have to at least select a church. But as of right now,
And God will lead you
Yeah,
to and that,
exactly.
so you won't have to worry if God's going to lead you to what is good for the both of you too. And there'll be peace.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was gonna say. Just we take turns, and we get to connect with like he said. I connect with people from his church, with the girls from his church, and he connects, here too with at my church, and yeah, I'd say with even pastors, I keep in touch with them, the hermanas, his church and everything, and we just feel just embraced in each other's churches, and we just make time for them as much as we can, balancing it out pretty much.
It'd be tough to just only date within your church. It's already hard to find a good Christian man or woman, and then to just specialize, just in my church, that's even more. It's just, as long as you guys both got the right headspace and both got the fire for God, I feel like you guys can make it work if God allows it.
Oh yeah, and I feel also something that I really loved about him that he said when we first met was the phrase, when there's a will, there's a way. And so there's been a will in us in wanting to both be, involved in each other's churches, because his church is almost an hour away from where I live. And so we just still make time for it. There's that will, so we make a way for it, try to make it work.
And I think too, knowing that God put it together, it makes it easier to say, since there is literally a will, there is a way.
Literally.
And a way will always make me too.
Yeah, and God's will is the best.
Okay. So, Diogo, what advice would you give to a guy that is seeking to be in a godly relationship? And how could you encourage them and give them hope in a world we live in now, and social media and technology and knowing the way to go? What would be some hope and encouragement you would give to a young man?
Hope and encouragement, I think just focus on yourself right now. Focus on your walk with God. Some encouragement I could give you is a couple verses that I can't say on the top of my head, but that God always has a plan. He has a will for your life. As long as you're seeking it, it will come to fruition. It's gonna happen. So just keep going and just keep working on yourself. There's a lot of things that could stray you away from God, and just be strong in the faith, and just keep growing because you're gonna need it once you do find that godly woman. She's gonna look for characteristics, and if you don't have them, you could lose your blessing. So just work on yourself, focus on your mission, and keep praying and keep reading the word.
Amen. How about you, Lemby? How would you encourage a young woman or a young lady who's in her singleness season right now, who's seeking to be in a godly relationship? What's some hope and encouragement you can give them?
Well, I would say to just enjoy it. Go out with your friends, with your family, try to just connect with all of them more, because once you do get in a relationship, just the dynamic in your relationships change in the sense that you kind of have now time that you set aside now for your partner, and overall just with life, you just get more responsibilities and stuff. But I'd say the season of singleness is just such a great season, and at least from my experience, like I said, that's what I did. And with school, just focusing on school, working, kind of like what he said as well, just focusing on yourself, especially in your relationship with God, just strengthening your relationship with him as much as possible, and just be very hopeful for the future, but not keep your headspace always fixated on the future, but just kind of in that moment, because at least one thing that I'm learning now, it's kind of you go through different seasons, and once you go from one season to the next, you can't go back. You just keep God keeps leading you, and you keep going to the next. And so I would say enjoy it, and mainly that. Try to grow even closer with your family, make some time with your friends. And if you are in a season of isolation, it's okay. God will provide the friends in his timing, but yeah, overall, just focus on God and in growing your own qualities and characteristics.
Okay, I'm gonna kind of backtrack a bit. That
Yeah.
was all great advice. Were you guys in church in your singleness, involved in church, or like how did that work?
Okay.
I was definitely very involved in my church. I think at the time, I tell you, I was very on fire for God. And I think besides maybe Monday, I wasn't in church. I think every other day I was in church. I was either going to a friend's event or personal I had a personal interview with my pastor and
Meeting?
personal meetings.
Yeah.
Thank you. Personal meetings with my pastor, like probably like twice a week, and the good thing is in my church we do have a lot of events, so I was.
Would you say that kind of helped you in your singleness too, being involved in a community like that was led by God?
Yes, most definitely, definitely, and
Yeah, I'd say for me, yeah, I'd also serve as much as I could. But one thing if I could change anything, would make myself more available. You know, not just wait, you know, for like pastors or anybody, you know, from the church to reach out to me, but make myself more available. You know, and yeah, just serving, attending the events, supporting, posting on social media, you know, all the events, encouraging people to come, and genuinely connecting with like the community, you know, and yeah, I would say is that.
Because I know in singleness, like when you feel isolated, having that community is important. And I know that's something you both did too in the midst of your singleness. You guys were connected in church. You guys had those other godly spirit-led people around you that helped you to kind of build those characteristics in your singleness.
Oh yeah.
And were it kind of just things you're like, oh, I have to navigate this on my own. Like you guys chose to like kind of be in church and at the same time like hear the preachings on Sundays, being connected to your guys' events where you guys are personally not only getting fed with your personal time with the Lord, but also getting fed by those in the church. So I kind of wanted you guys to talk about that too, like those experiences and how is that like would God speak to you in those events, or like how is that for you guys as you were getting built up to becoming that man or woman of God, like ready to date?
Oh yeah, I mean, I just know every Sunday I'd always show up with my Bible and my little notebook, my pen, and I'd be like, all right, Pastor, you know, what's God telling you to tell us, you know, and just like taking notes and going over them, and yeah.
For me, it was just a lot of learning. I mean, within myself, just like I said, God builds your character. So I saw some flaws that were kind of hard to transition from, but eventually I did it, and some I'm still working on right now, and yeah, but it's a lot of hard work, but it's you have to be willing to do it because it's always better on the other side.
Oh yeah.
You guys want to give an extra piece of advice?
Let me see.
Like, what would you tell yourself if you were to go back into that singleness season? What's something you would have changed? Like, I know you said stay more available. What about you? Would it be something you can go back and say? Would it be like, don't worry, you're gonna find her? Like, what would your saying be to yourself?
I think probably the same thing. Just focus on a mission. I mean, always there's always so much other things you can focus on. You know, there's your relationship with God. There's your characteristics. There's good and bad things about your character. There's bad habits. There's good habits. There's going to the gym or not. There's have you making money or not. How are you doing with your education? There's just so much other things you could do, and then the right person will come. I always had that belief. I was like, if I'm heading into a direction, I know someone else is going to join me. So all I got to do is focus on my mission, what I want to do to improve, and who I want to be.
Well, you found your someone.
Yes.
So guys, fun fact, me and Alembi, we actually met our sophomore year, but knew each other our freshman year of high school. So that's a fun fact about us. And maybe we have a new member that joined.
Yes.
So thank you guys for taking the time to
Yes.
watch, and thank you guys for taking
Yeah.
the time to give us some advice,
Yeah.
because I know there are people who want and seek for a godly relationship, just as you guys have one, but at the same time, like, how do you get there? How do you be an individual, a woman of God, a man of God, and like get built up to actually enter into that relationship? And I like how you mentioned, like, you were cautious when you were talking to people in the midst of your singleness, because how do you handle that? Like, if there are a lot of people coming at you at once, like, how do you navigate that? Like, how do you bring them down in a godly manner as well, if you feel like that's not your husband, you know? And then, like, same to you, what advice would you give to someone with girls? Like, if there's girls coming at them, how would you let them down in a godly manner?
Personally, how I mean, just talking to them as friends. I feel like women are less forward, so as long as you're just dry, and then I'm straight to the point. So like, where are your intentions at? I would try to figure out her intentions and then be straight up. Like I said, I was straight up with her that I'm pursuing you, and if there's a woman that I don't like that's pursuing me or whatever's going on, I'm like, just so you know, I'm not looking for anything. I don't see us going anything other than being a friend, and just making your intentions clear. I don't think there's nothing wrong about that. I think it actually helps the other person and keeps from people wasting time. So just being upfront, not being too malice about it, but just being straight up.
Yeah, and I would also add, like, as a girl, if you're getting, let's say, some hermanos from the church texting you, and let's say you have a crush on one of them or something, or I don't know, or another Christian from somewhere, from school or somewhere, I don't know, and don't make these little scenarios in your head, or like, oh, what if he does like me? Well, he said God bless you a little too nice. Like, I don't know, maybe he does. You know, no, like, that's one thing I always was like, no, like, I'm not gonna make these little scenarios in my head. No, it's like, okay, if he does want to pursue a relationship with me, he's going to tell me, you know, he's going to be straightforward. He's gonna pursue me, like, actually pursue me, you know, not just have a friendship with me, but actually pursue me. And that's what he did, which is what I loved about him. And so, yeah, so whenever, again, I always kept my boundaries regardless, but of course, I didn't restrict myself from talking to guys. You know, I did have, like, my friends that I would talk in person and here and that, like, at church, you know. But I never, or honestly, like, anywhere, at stores if I'd see them or anywhere. But I never took things out of context, you know. And yeah, I just kept them as friends, and even here in my head, you know, not be delusional, like we'd say at the time. At the time, I used to say that a lot. I'm not gonna be delulu about this person.
Yes.
But, yes.
And I think something you said that is so true. You were very happy in your singleness.
Oh yes, God, it was just so good.
I'm not gonna lie, she was so happy it threw me off.
Yeah.
Like, as her friend, seeing it from, like, in the moment, I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was cool to see. You did. You were content in it. You had the joy of the Lord in it. So, yeah, thank you guys for joining us. And you guys stay tuned for the next guest for the next video or episode. God bless.
God bless you.
God bless.
Bye-bye.